I'm not really having a hard time explaining myself. So, okay, anyways. So I'm kind of in the position of where I'm being constantly attacked by cyber terrorists. And the cyber terrorists, well, this is in part having to do with this links into a lot of other things, but one of the main staple things that it does link into is geoengineering. And so through geoengineering, they've put nanotech inside of a lot of people's brains and bodies, and because the particulates are so tiny, you could just get it on your skin, and it would absorb into your body, and it would be part of your anatomy and physiology. So this is part of the issue that I'm kind of having here, and they've linked into my body, and they're basically like, what I'm going through right now is they're trying to make me look crazy. But you have to kind of take a step back and think, like, why would someone, and we can start with basic tenets here, why would someone sit here and question these things and have all this substantial information? Here's one of the worst parts. They have given me enough clues to where I can make I can put into proper tense a case. So this is where they're going to have a lot of complications, and there's going to be an enormous amount of questions that need to be answered here. But what I am saying is that there's not really any way to get about what I'm getting at when it comes to like what I'm trying to say about any of these points that I'm trying to make. These guys are not going to be able to avoid prosecution with any of these things, and a lot of their lives are going to be destroyed. And these are affluent types. A lot of them have a lot of money. There's several there's quite a few billionaires involved, and there's millionaires, and then there's some trillionaire families that have been exposed to this kind of interaction. Now, with the way that they're interacting with each other, there's no way to keep me away from being connected on this network and getting to where I need to go. Like, there's no way to keep me out of the loop. So these guys have threatened to kill me several times. They use death threats on me a lot. They say I'm gonna die all the time. They try to convince me of it, and they're like, oh well, in the courtroom you're not gonna be able to explain yourself because we're gonna try and control your intelligence. And it's like, well, it's actually not that hard. I don't really need to use anything advanced, and I certainly don't need to use quantum mechanics to figure my way out of this or to get all of my work back. So to them, because they're scientists, they won't believe it, and that's fine. I don't really need to convince them. Here's the problem with here's one of the weaknesses of needing the scientific stricture as a form of thought, is that you cannot leap past the bounds in which someone else has decided for you, or what has been derived previously from contemporary methodologies or otherwise. So these guys, they don't really have a strong sense of, I don't really get a strong sense of intuition out of them, and they think that they can keep me away from this woman, and that somehow they're going to be able to they're going to be able to succeed in trying to destroy my witness pattern, as well as my credibility. And mostly it's my credibility they're trying to attack right now. And they exclaim that some of the things that I'm saying on Twitter or Facebook are I wouldn't say monotonous. I would say that they are in the middle of here's a small explanation. In the middle of thinking a thought, they'll try to take over your thought in the middle of your head. So as you're thinking, they'll try to divert it into another direction, where they use a sort of a psyche or a psychical influential statement, and they'll use the statement to try to force your mind into thinking a certain pattern or thinking a certain way. And so as you're speaking or talking, they'll try to force you to explain yourself in a certain way. And so this is how they've used partial automation to attempt to set people up. And I'm one of those individuals who's been victimized by this. And here's the problem. I do have proof for this, because I do have reproductive system damage. I do have I have damage to my testes. I also they've tried to put me into a position where I can't really get an erection, and I've always been extremely vigorous sexually. So this is I'm not really embarrassed saying this because these guys, I think these guys are idiots. But they think they're the most intelligent people on earth just because they have a bunch of money, and they think they have the most genius minds on the planet. They really don't. So it's not hard to prove all these points, and to do so very basically. Some of them are being set up, and this is why they're actually falling for it. And there's a number of them, and they've taken part in trying to trash me and trying to screw up my reputation, but it's not really going to do anything, because no matter what they say or do, I can always explain myself before society and talk about like how I feel about any given matter or any given subject, and it's not going to extricate them from all of these self-destructive and sort of melodramatic wiles that sort of plague them. So I will say that in my next videos, I will kind of talk about how they have tried to separate me or use like a separatist disposition on me as a like a warfaring method to try to destroy my psyche and to get me to submit to a certain a certain backdrop that they want me to fall into. So I don't let someone decide my story. These people have tried to steal a lot of things that have to do with my creativity. They've tried to damage certain aptitudes and certain parts of my brain and certain aptitudes I normally have that are dealing with my psychic acumen. And these are things I've had my entire life, so you can't really. It's hard to argue with the fact that an anecdote is where everything starts, and you never have a consensus for anything, or the mass objective consensus for anything without the anecdote. It always starts at the anecdote. Even if there's two at the same time, there's always the anecdote. So I can always refer back to the most basic of all the foundational principles, and it will guide me to where I need to go. This Occam's razor, you can never go wrong. You can never go wrong with Occam's razor. All of these guys, several of them actually are rich, and they have a lot to lose. So they do harass me constantly, and they do think that they've managed to like push someone away from me, and in fact they haven't been able to do this. So no matter what, this information is going to get out. There's no way to stop it. Like, they've tried to censor me over online. I've had a lot to say online through my Twitter and Facebook account. I've also used various other social media channels like YouTube. And this is not going to be swept underneath the rug, and it will not be quieted. All this attempts at censorship will not, suffice to cement any of the things that I'm trying to do into a mold that will be abstracted by them into a useful and beneficial thing for these types that have a real problem of sociopathy. So it's not hard for me to turn any of these things around. Again, I do have reproductive system damage, which is that they've tried to take away the blood flow to my penis, and they've tried to do this in such a way where they think they can control it, and so I can't get an erection, or I don't have like a normalized sexual pattern, and also I don't have my sex drive is not really there, and I don't have they try to take away my blood flow to my testes, and they've also tried to sterilize me multiple times, but in fact they've been unsuccessful in doing so. They've also tried to sterilize Daisy Ridley from Star Wars, the person who plays Rey. So these guys, this is going to be a massive lawsuit string where a lot of people who are in power, a lot of people who have influential positions are destroyed utterly, and some of them probably given the death sentence. Because they've caused like intel and police to lose their lives while doing this.